There's a line where I want to be super collaborative and I want to come up with things together. But there's also a line where it's like, I am the captain steering the ship, right? So at the end of the day, the buck ends with me. And so I have to be able to like also, you know, keep everything on the same page and on the same train.
You're listening to the Almost 30 podcast, a lifestyle podcast hosted by Krista Williams and Lindsay Simsick.
Tune in for a new episode every Tuesday to hear our honest conversations about topics like wellness, entrepreneurship, spirituality, and self-development with guests who are really smart, really inspirational,
and really fucking funny. It's real, it's raw, and it's unfiltered.
Inspired by our transition from our 20s to our 30s, we realized it's so much more than that. Our mission is to provide you with the tools, guidance, and motivation to help you navigate any transitions in your life and propel your personal growth.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Almost 30 podcast.
Here we go.
Oh, you want to hear something fucking crazy?
Alexa, are you listening to our conversation and sending information to the government? Fuck you.
Dude, in North Carolina, I asked Justin's mom's Alexa. I asked that bitch, I was like, hey, Alexa, are you listening? Even when we're not talking to you? She goes like, please check Amazon's privacy policies. And I go, hey, Alexa, are you listening and sending all the information to the government? And she goes, please check Amazon's privacy policies for more information. She never said yes or no.
Oh my God.
Honestly.
Did you check the privacy policy?
Hell no.
I'm scared.
That bitch is 40 pages long. Yo, that thing in the language in that makes no sense to anyone that...
Well, purposely.
Crazy, right? That's why I don't have Alexa.
I mean, our whole podcast
yeah,
listened to through Alexa.
What? I'm pissed at her. Anywho.
I like on stories talking to Alexa, and then it turns on everyone else's Alexa when they listen to my stories. It's fun and evil. Because if I say like...
That's so scary.
What did I do? I think it was just like play Christmas music or something. And then it like, I got like a bunch of messages that were like, oh my God, I turned on my Alexa. I could be real fucked up.
I still have my tape covering I need to put my tape covering my camera.
Yeah.
Anywho.
Maybe that's what Trump does all day.
Yep. Looks at me.
Or, you know,
getting
just
food all
like,
over my shirt.
He's like, hey, so-and-so bring up like
let's see. It was actually Obama that was a part of that privacy scandal, but whatever. Hey guys, welcome back.
Welcome to the Almost 30 podcast. We release every Tuesday and Thursday episodes that hopefully inspire you, make you laugh, make you think. And we have a beautiful community. They're all funny and curious and just very uplifting, supportive. So if you haven't joined the secret Facebook group, get in there. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's amazing. So happy you're here. We are 3 weeks into January, crushing it. Hopefully your resolutions or goals are going well and you are sticking with them and you are holding yourself accountable and you're holding those around you accountable, and hopefully they are centered in a why so that you really, really feel aligned to what you're doing.
Yeah, it's been nice to kind of like ease into it, I guess. Like I felt like a little more calm this year. I think like in years past, I've just been like, here we go.
Yeah.
New year, like full throttle.
I'm trying
and
to think of what my resolutions last year would be. I actually should have looked in my folder. Probably lose weight always.
Do you type them in like a...
No, I just write them down. But I don't know where they were. Maybe it was probably to quit too. And then I know there was one, my monetary goal. It was kind of crazy actually. I had like a specific number in mind and I don't want to trigger anyone so they know how rich I am. Don't be triggered. But the 28th of December, I looked at the number and I was like $60 away from the number I wanted to hit, which was like a very lofty number.
Yeah.
You know, like 4 billion or something. And all I had to do was like move over the money from my savings or my checking to my savings to get the number right before the New Year's. I was like, oh my, I never thought, I was like, whoa.
That's incredible.
It was incredible. It was, it was just kind of one of those things. It was like, wow, this could happen. It could happen with, the goal to set that intention. But yeah, it was crazy.
I also think too, I was thinking today, I was like running simple errands, and I was thinking of the really weird dichotomies in my life where, thankfully, I make enough money to like live comfortably and do things that I want to do. But like, so I'm like shopping at Erewhon for a few things. And then I go to the cash register and I'm like, hey, do you have like $4 in quarters for my laundry?
Of course.
But it's like, I'm trying to think. I had another one where it's like, I'm bringing like my $20 sweater to be dry cleaned and it costs $10 to be dry cleaned. You know what I mean? Like it's just funny little things where I don't think it'll always be that way, but it's this limbo for me where it's not, I don't have my own washer and dryer.
It's quite the limbo.
Quite the limbo.
Where
I'm still like, dealing with a landlord, which is fine.
I would deal with a landlord for my whole life, probably.
Yeah, I mean the rate.
Actually, not the fuckers that run my building.
Yeah, man.
Today's actually the worst day of my life, so I'm so glad you guys are here to listen. I just pulled up the mic closer to me. Gather around. Story time. So I get back from my workout, a nice walkie workout, and I pull up to our apartment building, which we moved in August. I was so excited to move in. I wasn't so excited, but I was kind of excited to move in because my old apartment sucked. And not only have they painted the place blue. It's what kind of blue would you call it?
It is like a Rugrats blue.
Retirement home blue. It's very, very nothing. You don't feel. Blue's hard. Blue's a feel. Blue's
like
a feel and cover. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like if someone had this blue type of aura, you'd be like, wow, they're crusty. It's a crusty blue. So it's blue and I walk up and I hear chainsaws. I'm like, what the heck? The most beautiful tree that sits in front of one of the windows in the building was being chainsawed down. And I am like, what? And I run to the front of the building and I see my trees in front of my window, which make my apartment what it is, 100%. They cover our porch. They cover our balcony. They provide us shade. They provide us joy. They're so beautiful. And it's different because in California, there's mostly palm trees and there's not a lot of trees. So that was like a differentiating factor when we moved in because it felt more homey and rustic and cozy because the trees were different than the trees that we normally see. And the foliage was like really nice and made you feel like home. So I'm like fighting with the guys downstairs. We're talking to all the neighbors. The neighbors have been there for 25 years. They're, not old hat to this. And they said that they've tried to fight it for years and years. 3 times they tried to cut down the trees. We called the city. We called the arborists. And they basically weren't able to move quickly enough. And then when I came back today for my first meeting, my trees were like gone. It was now my apartment, I'm going to move. It's disgusting. My apartment is disgusting. I spent so much money to decorate it and it's gross.
I feel you.
It's so sad. It is so heartbreaking.
It's more just like,
why?
And like, how do we like protect the trees over the management's ownership, quote unquote, of the plot?
They've never been there. The management has never been there. They're sitting wherever they are and they're painting it whack colors. And they just think, clear it out so they can get more people that pay as much as I do, in rent. Because most of the people in Santa Monica have rent control. So a lot of people in the building have been there for 25 years and they're paying 1/3 what I'm paying. So it's a benefit to them to redo and clean it up and up on landscaping, but it just doesn't make sense. Trees like that are very valuable, even for like a property. So No part of it makes it. It made me sad too for the people that do that. Think about it. If you're, and they don't know better and their priority is feeding their families and their priority is, creating a home for their unit, but it just makes no sense. And it's so heartbreaking. And I just feel so sad today. I feel but it's happening all over the world all the time. And this was a situation where I was faced with the loss of these beautiful trees. And I just want to remember them in the right way.
I wonder how, because you're so eloquent, like, could you write to someone, could you post this publicly?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just don't think it's right.
I called the city. I wasn't able to get in touch, but I agree. And we never got a notice. And I'm going to be writing to the management. They didn't notice us. So we need to know if someone's chainsawing outside my window at 7 a.m.
Completely.
Please just hit me with a text.
Out of courtesy. Yeah.
Out of legality. I was telling the guy that was like working, I was like, oh, this is illegal. And he's like, it's legal, but I do it. I'm like, no, it's illegal. It's not legal. He's like, it's illegal, but I do it. I was like, it's not legal. And he's like, it's legal. I don't do it. So he was like saying he like thought it was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, all right, I'm out of here, dude. Oh,
well, it's just sad because I think, as you were saying, just they, are providing for their families and like it is work that they can do. But I mean, in perhaps their native country, wherever they are from, like I would imagine that nature is something that they hold very dear to their heart and something that perhaps their family has, taught them to value and honor, and how quickly you forget when,
push comes to shove.
Mm-hmm. I think while you were, because I talked to you before, I talked to you after, but it was ironic because earlier this morning I took a hike that I had never been on, and it's in, I guess technically Brentwood, but it's off of Kenter. So if anyone's in LA, I highly recommend this, but you go to the top of Kenter, and as you hike, you're kind of slowly, raising elevation. And at one of the peaks,
as you do in hikes,
I know, but but it's not like one of the, because
like steep.
So yeah, it was steep, like one peak, and then there's another peak, whatever. And then there's this beautiful oak tree at the top of this one hill, and it's just been untouched. Like it's probably, I don't even know, at least 100 years old. It is so massive and so sturdy. And I mean, I can imagine that the roots are like reaching like trees and bushes like far and wide. It's just like this massive like presence. But I was thinking of like how much trees see and like how they're so like rooted and sturdy and just see so much chaos and all the things, whether it's weather or pollution or people, whatever it is, and they just stay really rooted and grounded, if hopefully untouched. But I'm sorry about that. I just saw the tree and I was like, this tree morning, life. It's just kind of a weird theme
Did
today.
you see the post of the famous gorilla, her last message to humanity before she died?
I don't think so.
She is, so it's Coco, who was one of the silverback gorillas known for learning sign language. She passed away at 46. Her message to humanity was so cute. We can share it in the Facebook group. But basically, it's like, I am gorilla, I am flowers, I love man, man loves me, but humans are stupid. They're not respecting Mother Earth, and time is running out. And it was very like profound and cryptic in a way, and beautiful and powerful. And it's, her signing. But it was very special and it's very ominous. You're like, okay.
Wow.
Where'd you get that? Where'd you get that information? It was beautiful.
Do we know if animals are intuitive? I know not like humans, but you know what I'm saying? Maybe it's even more than humans.
You don't even know. So there's this study by Rupert Sherdock that I can also share in the group too. He's a really famous scientist on like consciousness, and he is one of the people that believes in like a collective consciousness. And one of his most famous studies was with rats. And he had these rats in a maze working for food, basically. And he had 2 tunnels for the maze. One had a light, one didn't have a light. So in the study, the rats would be fed at the end of the maze that had no light. So it's kind of counterintuitive. You think when the light goes off, you're going to get fed. So it would be the light going off and they would go to the light because they believed that was the point they were getting fed. But they'd actually end up going, but the food was actually where the light wasn't. So over time, they finally learned, took however long for them to figure out that they would be fed at the point that didn't have the light. And then he would go around the world to different places. He did his first study somewhere, maybe Russia. I'm not exactly sure. And then he would go somewhere in Switzerland and do the same study. And each time he would do the study in different places around the world with different rats, the amount of time it would take for the rats to figure out that they would be fed at the point that is not lit was cut down significantly, almost to the point where it would take seconds for the group of rats to figure out that they would be fed at the point where there was no light. So these rats are from different places, different situations, and it's almost like the collective consciousness is what educated them and told them that this is where you're going to be fed. So this is almost goes to like an evolutionary standpoint where you think about where we look at animals and we are like, why do they do that? You know, why do they evolve to go to that certain flower or, you know, pollinate that place, or, you know, koalas eating that certain type of food only. And they think it's because of a collective consciousness of the species of animals that allows them to, you know, evolve in that way. And without communication like we have to with internet and phones and stuff like that too. But it also speaks to the fact that there's probably a collective consciousness with humans too. You know, when we talked about dreaming, we talked a lot about collective consciousness. And when we're dreaming at night, we go into our subconscious state, you know, where you're very relaxed. And it's almost like the collective consciousness kind of rises at that time. And that's also what I think about as it relates to meditation. So meditation is so important, not only for yourself, but when you think of a collective consciousness and kind of clearing a collective consciousness, you have to start with yourself. So I don't know how I got there, but I
think it makes complete sense. And I think there's so much stuff just on, you know, in the human realm in the way. So if you're not meditating, if you are not remembering your dreams or tuning in or not getting in, you know, sleep at all, I think it would be really hard to tap in. But like technology gets in the way. I think literally the frequencies get in the way of our ability to connect on a conscious level. And then just the distractions and the worry and the fear. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think because animals don't have any of that, I think their fear is different. Their fear is more literally animal instinct. But
where does instinct come from?
Mm-hmm.
Collective consciousness, you know? So it's,
yes.
But Rupert Sherdock is that scientist, and he's one of the greats. So highly suggest.
So on the podcast today, we have Sam Bailey.
Sam is awesome. I actually heard about Sam Bailey from her series, web series, Brown Girls, which was nominated for an Emmy for Outstanding Short Film Comedy or Drama Series in 2017. So that piqued my interest. I saw her in the Chicago list, I think for top 50 like coolest people in Chicago. I don't know what it
Sounds right.
Sam, don't kill me. It probably was coolest, most awesome people. And I thought it was very interesting. Her work with her partner, Fatimah, is amazing. And we are excited to have her on the show today to tell us her story.
Yeah, she's really been changing the landscape of who we see in movies and series behind the camera as a director, writer, more women of color. The statistics are crazy. I believe she discusses it in the interview itself. But women in this industry need to see more of themselves. You know, it's hard to imagine being able to do it if you don't see it. So thank you, Sam. She also, if you're interested, before Brown Girls had a series called You're So Talented, and it highlights a Chicago artist and as she navigates her 20s. So really relevant to all of you who are going through the same. So you can check that out. It's presented by Open TV.
Exciting. So thank you so much, Sam, for adding new and needed voices to our narrative and being a inspiration to us all. We are so excited that you joined us on the podcast.
Yeah. And just to highlight a few things that you all should know about, we have events coming up on February 9th. We will be hosting an event in Los Angeles, in Venice at Sage Wellness with Alexandra Roxo. It is going to be
sexual.
Oh, yeah.
Juicy.
Really fun. Really good. It's going to be a workshop, so a little bit longer than our normal events, and it'll be on a Saturday. So get your tickets at almost30podcast.com. And what else? I'm trying to think. we're gearing up to head on tour. So please check out our website for updates. We are coming to cities that we have not been to yet, as well as going international. And we will be visiting colleges as well. So if you are at a college or know someone at a college or have contacts at a college or university, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at events@almost30podcast.com.
Excited to be with you guys this year again. Excited for everything that's happening with us. And thank you for sharing what's happening with you in the secret Facebook group, on Instagram. And every time you DM Lindsay and I or send us an email, we are so grateful. So enjoy this episode. Make sure you are subscribed. If you have not written a review, please do. It takes full seconds. And we really appreciate it.
All right, guys, enjoy this conversation and we'll see you on the other side.
There was one girl we were friends with, or I was introduced to, and she's an architect, and she like talked about stuff like that. And like from an outsider's perspective, I have an understanding of gentrification, but and I've seen it, whatever, but I wouldn't think about architecture as it relates to that. Mm-hmm. And that was part of like what she did, was like thinking about how like architecture or how design could be more integrated into cities and where people live, instead of like just putting a modern building in an area like Humboldt Park or something like that.
Yeah, which is where I'm from, Humboldt Park, Logan Square.
Yeah.
And so these like beautiful brownstones that are there, these huge buildings end up getting taken out, and these like gray boxes come out with like, floor to ceiling windows, which is like dope. But if you want that, you go to the Gold Coast, or if you want that, you go to the Loop, And I think that's kind of amazing about Chicago, is that there's so many of the different neighborhoods have their own visual DNA, right? So when you take that away, then it's like, oh, we're just all the same city, no matter where you go around the country, and that feels sucky.
Totally.
And,
do you think it's like Google, or what do you think as like, or like some of those companies? I guess I don't mean to like blame it on the big companies, because I'm not like someone like that. But like, what do you think it is, the gentrification that's pushing in Chicago?
Oh, I mean, I think it has like roots that go far beyond and before Google, but like that is all part of it as well, right? Like there's redlining, and there's, there was the Great White Flight was when everyone moved to the suburbs, and then these, people of color had to be in those neighborhoods and dealt with a lot of like really horrible restrictions in terms of how to like buying houses and stuff for themselves. And then the city becomes cool again, and artists start slowly moving in, and then people with money start coming in, and then it changes the DNA again. So it's something that happens often, and it's like cyclical to a certain extent. But it's you almost can't put it onto one thing because it's so systemic.
Totally.
So like racism, classism.
Yeah.
There's a bunch.
What is the Great White Flight? I don't know what that is.
I mean, I think it was when like during the Great Migration, when like Black people came in from the South, and they moved to like Detroit and Cincinnati and Chicago and all those places, and like white people moved out because they didn't want to be sharing their communities with those people. Wow. And there's probably like, I'm not a history buff, there's probably a deeper way of explaining that,
Keep it
a more
easy.
layered way. But
I often think about like, what is kind of the explanation of, when people come in and build these new apartment complexes, they build these new businesses that seem to kind of stick out like, a sore thumb. Like, what is their explanation? Like, what are they telling people that will appease them? Is it like, well, this creates more jobs, and this creates like, I'm always like, wondering about, what is like, what language are they using to justify just kind of coming in, changing everything, uprooting families, creating housing that's unaffordable to a lot of people. I mean, it's happening a lot, I think, in even just like near us, we see it. I think in Venice, Santa Monica, although they are like getting to be like wealthy areas, but like you just see this like modern apartment building all of a sudden, like where did that come from? But I wonder what the language is like to make people like believe that this is a good thing,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like they don't, for them to like buy out poorer people's place. Like, I think obviously just the money is like, wanting that money is like a good enough thing. But I don't think they have to like sell it to the neighborhood. It's kind of like they have the money, so they have the power,
they just don't give a fuck.
In Venice, they have I work with Venice Community Housing, VCH, and they do like affordable housing units within Venice. So they have like 8 buildings that provide affordable housing for people. And it's just like, it's now working with them. Like, it's weird how I've been the groups and communities that I've worked with. Like I worked with Habitat for Humanity in Chicago for a long time. And it's like, it's so important to provide this for cultural reasons, for like keeping diversity within a place like Venice. Because without something like that, it could get bought out so easily. Like think about how much money could be working within Venice. So having like opportunities where people of all colors, races, ethnicities can afford to actually live in the city, or else it would just be completely like whitewashed. You know, it's like, it's just so important that there is affordable housing in all areas and that it's like provided. That's why I liked working with Habitat, because like with Habitat for Humanity, it doesn't just give what's important about it is it doesn't just give a free apartment or home to someone. They have to pay for it. They have to finance it. And then they learn within that how to build credit, how to pay for something responsibly, like how to actually take care of and manage a home. It's like, it just gives someone like a leg up to actually buying a home in an area that they maybe wouldn't like be able to afford, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got on this. Chicago
talking about rent.
Yeah, talking about rent. Literally, it's like so funny because like here, because I've lived in where Chicago, New York, and here, it's like I ask everyone how much their rent is.
I do too.
Literally, no, I'm a savage about it. I'm like, so how much are you paying? Because it's like we all need to know and like compare and like understand.
Yeah.
Because it's all so crazy.
It's actually fucked up how used to I've gotten to paying an exorbitant amount of money for rent. It's not okay. Going from New York to LA, you know, like
how much was your rent in New York?
Well, I was with someone else. I mean, it's chump change to what I'm paying now, but for me at the time, it was a lot. It was like $1,500 in a 2-bedroom, small.
Yeah,
but the whole thing was like 31.
See, that's
32.
That's exactly what I think about New York. That's crazy.
in Chicago, mine was I paid $900 at the most.
Yeah,
and I was like Lincoln Park, Southport.
Yeah, which
areas.
is considered like expensive neighborhoods.
Yeah. So it was like, and I don't know if I felt that was expensive or not. I'm not really sure. But then in New York, it was like all bets are off. You know, I'm living in like a studio in Queens for so much money.
Yeah,
I know, it's insane. Well, we're so happy to have you here, Sam.
Yes, honey.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we
giving me all this guy. She's wearing this fucking beautiful. Red. I know.
Can't stop drooling.
Yeah. I'm like, it's soft too.
There's probably like many pictures of me in this dress. Actually, I wear it quite a bit.
That is the story of our life.
That is the story of our life.
Kristen and I will like get something to wear, and we will, because we see each other mostly every day.
Yeah,
we'll just wear it 5 days in a row.
Yeah,
if
it makes you feel good, like you find a thing. I bought these Dickies jumpsuits on Amazon.
Oh, damn.
Like 25. I have one that's red.
I need to see this.
Wait, is it like an overalls?
Yeah, like the coverall. Yeah. I have that. I have it in black. I want to get in a couple other colors.
It's the shit.
Yeah.
Right, I need to see this.
I got it at like a little thrift store. Overalls.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in red and they're shorts. And I like...
Oh, they're shorts?
Yeah, and it's like red. Or no, short sleeve.
Oh, short sleeve.
But it's red like this red. So super bright.
Come on. Okay, well, we're going to have those next week.
Yeah, literally.
Almost 30 knows uniform.
Oh, I get it. They had it at like, they had it at like Urban and shit.
Oh, yeah, something like that.
I love that.
But
I bet you it's cheaper on Amazon.
100%. Damn, that's so dope. That's that shit. Hides every part of my body. Let's do it.
Paint a house. Yeah. Sam is the co-creator of Brown Girls web series on HBO. And I'm so curious kind of where you're from and how you grew up and what was kind of your creative origins. We're both creatives in different ways. And so I'm always just so curious, like when that little spark started.
So I grew up in Chicago. I have a lot of family in Chicago. I grew up in like the Logan Square, Humboldt Park area we were talking about earlier. I mean, I grew up like super religious. I was like hella Baptist.
Really?
Like in church like 4 or 5 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah. And like in the way that like, it was one of those churches that like everyone was related in some way. All of my play aunties were part of the choir. My mom was really involved in it. So that was a huge part of my life when I was younger. And I sang in choir. And there was a time where I thought I was going to be a singer. And I was doing like musical theater in grade school and in high school. But it was probably, I think freshman year of high school, I kind of had two options, which was either like play volleyball or do this theater intensive with Steppenwolf Theater in Chicago. And so I picked the latter. I picked the theater.
Did you have to audition?
Yeah, we had audition, and I was like too young to audition. I think the age was supposed to be like 15. It was supposed to be 15 to like 18, and I was 14. And I was like, I begged them to let me audition or whatever, and they let me do it, and I got in. And that was pretty much, that's changed like my trajectory in terms of me being like a diehard, wanting to do theater, loved acting, loved Chicago's theater community in general.
So strong.
Yeah, it's super strong, it's super tight knit. For better or for worse.
Yeah. I know.
And so then we moved to Indiana my senior year of high school, and I hated it.
Where in Indiana?
Lawrence, Indiana.
Why'd you hate it?
Because I'm a city girl through and through, right? Yeah. So I had never even I remember thinking that it reminded me of Dawson's Creek, and like Dawson's Creek might as well be Mars for me compared to like how you grew up in Chicago. So I felt very much out of my element there. So immediately when I graduated, I moved back to Chicago, and then I went to Columbia College for theater, and it was all about acting, and I didn't even want to really I remember not really wanting to graduate. I almost dropped out a couple times, just super I was just ready to go do what I wanted to do. So then I moved to New York right after I finished school. And I didn't really love the theater scene out there. So I came back, ended up playing Chicago, and then got tired of that, the Aquarian in me.
I know, always moving, yeah.
Always moving and changing. And so a couple years ago, in 2014, I wrote a web series and then shot, directed, acted in it. And it opened up in Tribeca, and it changed my trajectory again. And then that was all of a sudden a filmmaker. And then I did 2 seasons of that. Then I got on to Brown Girls, and then I moved out here last March.
When you're doing theater, this is dumb, but how do you get paid when you're acting in theater? Do you get ticket sales?
You get stipend. It depends. Okay. So certain houses will give you a quarter, a percentage of ticket sales, which I try not to do.
Yeah.
Because you already don't get paid a lot.
Yeah. Totally.
Chicago has this the black box theater scene, which is non-loop or off-loop theater, non-union off-loop theater. And so you get stipends. If you're lucky, you're getting $200 a week. And then if you're at the bigger houses like Steppenwolf or the Goodman or those, you have a slightly better range of money because of the unions and stuff like that. But it's not anywhere really near what you would get on Broadway. So unless you're doing a Broadway in Chicago show. So it really is piecing together different ways of making money. So I nannied, I was a teaching artist, I worked at a gym up until the end of 2016, Chicago Athletic Club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So funny. Yeah.
So many creatives worked there. They were actually, it's kind of a crazy company, but they were really good about hiring artists at the front desk, and they were super flexible. So people would leave, do a tour, come back, get their job. It was really...
That first web series, what was that first web series? And then what did you learn doing that? Because I'm sure that first kind of baby that you birthed had a lot of lessons.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that one was called You're So Talented. Mm-hmm. And I was going through a stage in theater because I had broken up with my boyfriend, who was also an actor. And then also I was in a play where I got asked to twerk in a slave costume with a rifle pointed out to the audience.
Sorry, what?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So that was the play. It's so interesting because
was it making a point?
It was supposed to be a satire on slavery, and there were so many things that I had hesitancies about before taking the gig. But as an actor, especially coming up through a serious training of acting, you're kind of taught that you take the role. There's no such thing as a small role. It's you kind of you're there to service the script, all this other stuff. So it was a lead role in a play with a company that I was affiliated with. But I always had hesitancies. And when that got added into the script, I was I can't do it. So I had dropped out. My boyfriend and I at the time had broken up on my birthday. It was really one of those, I think I had to be 25, something like that. And I was oh, this is a lesson. Why is God trying to fuck with me? And so I had written this series about a girl who is dissatisfied, finds out that she's kind of dissatisfied with acting and doesn't know what she wants to do next. But she's also looking for the next inspiration through men in a way. And it obviously does not work out right for her. And so that series, I had no idea what I was doing. So I look back on that time and being man, you were so fearless.
Fearless. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So fearless.
So fearless. Now, when I start something, I'm I know the armor I have to put on and get ready for. But back then it was just, I was excited to try a new art form. I mean, I learned so much in terms of like collaboration, right? Which I'm a big believer in collaboration, but I don't think everyone is the right collaborator for everyone, if that makes sense. So I learned a lot about who I want to create with and who I want to share my artistic space with, and to not be so freeing about that. And that's a recurring lesson that probably happens every 10 months or so with me. So it's like, oh, is this someone like you need to build with? Is this someone that like supports you and you can support them? And in the first season of You're So Talented, that wasn't, I found like a DP, a cinematographer who I love to this day. Like he was one who told me I was a filmmaker, like very, very supportive of me. But I had a co-director on because I didn't like trust myself at that time. And then realized very early on that not only was I doing all the work, but like he just wasn't the right person to tell that story. And so like me and the DP decided to go on the second season, and I would direct I'd be the official director on it. And it really like changed everything because I just got to be a lot more confident in my role as a director. And it still took me up until probably like last year to feel comfortable calling myself like a filmmaker. So yeah, I mean, learning about that, learning how to deal with a lot of people, because I have been writing for a long time, and that had been like, that's such a solitary act. And then when you're on set and or even before you're on set, when you start pre-production, there's so many other energies and people, and they all have their baggage and you have your baggage, and you're coming together to kind of serve a project. But learning how to navigate that is always, once again, like a lesson that I'm constantly learning.
Yeah, that is like freaking hard. It's interesting you say about the co-director. So you had a co-director on at first.
Yeah.
I feel like we've actually heard that. So like it's kind of a theme with a lot of the women that we've interviewed. It's kind of like at first they invite a man to help them get started. Jessica Alba with The Honest Company. I remember I saw a speech with her at Summit, and she invited a bunch of men to help her start the company, but then realized like, this is my idea. Why am I doing this? And then there's a few others. It's so funny how that's like your initial thought, and then you're like, I don't need, you know what I mean? Then you're kind of like realize I don't need anyone else.
Yeah.
It's just like that initial fear. You're like, okay, I kind of want to get something to help me.
Yeah. And I was like afraid because I was acting in it as well.
Yeah,
I didn't know like the technical stuff, But then I sat down with Mateo, who was the DP, and we like talked for hours about movies that I liked, things that I was, my vision for everything. And, we made our shot list together. And I was like, oh, that's what that is. Like, yeah, like you learn as you go as a filmmaker. And I think that with any like marginalized community, if you are stepping out, doing something, and you're taking a risk in a certain way, there's this pressure that we put on ourselves to be perfect, right? So we have to, whatever way we can like make it less of a risk, whatever that can like make it easier for us, because everything has to be so much better on your first try. I think that we tend to do that. Or I definitely thought about, that was the reasoning for me to have a co-director at first. And then I realized that I was doing everything my goddamn self anyway. So, yeah, I was like, fuck it. I was like, what's gonna happen? Like nothing's. And I was still thinking I would just go back to acting anyway. So I was like, why share this with him?
You're such a good actress.
So I've been working on my biome. I mean, I'm trying to like my skin and my hormones, and it's so important what's going on in your gut.
Yep.
They say it's like not even your second brain, like it is your brain.
Yeah, that's what they say at Human Garage too.
Yeah, so it's really important that I'm taking digestive enzymes before I eat, and probiotics, so that the food can be broken down and processed properly, and then the bacteria in my gut is populated with the correct bacteria. So as always, turn into Silver Fern. It's the best.
Yeah, I love all of their products. Even like I use every single one of their stuff, but yeah, their probiotic is definitely my favorite. It's the only one that has a sustainability guarantee, because probiotics are living organisms. You can get probiotics that either don't last or are not good, quote unquote. And yeah, their digestive enzyme is amazing. Whenever I travel, I make sure to bring it. I have it before my meal so that I can digest and assimilate all of the nutrients in my food.
So good. And they have a new protein.
Yep.
Which
their
has
chocolate protein is bomb, and the vanilla is bomb.
It's great.
Yeah. So they have great proteins that are plant-based that have probiotics in them. So it makes sure that when you are getting this high dose of protein from the pea or chia and everything that's in it, that you have probiotics to digest all of that.
Yeah. So if you'd like to try Silver Fern, you can go to silverfernbrand.com. So that's SILVERFERN brand.com. And you can use our code almost30 for 15% off your purchase. One of our goals this year for the podcast, behind the scenes, is to get insanely organized. We're pretty organized, but there's room for improvement, and we'd really love to streamline our processes. So if you, like us, are small business owners and want to spend less time on paperwork, endless emails, and dealing with payment collections, etc., HoneyBook is for you. It is a purpose-built business management platform for creative small businesses. They help, photographers, designers, event professionals, any solo entrepreneurs save hundreds, if not thousands of hours a year by adding time-saving automation into their business. So we are all about this as we want to really start exercising our creative muscles more and more and more. These everyday tasks that are taking up a lot of time, we would love to just have them taken care of and automated in a sense. So HoneyBook has helped us do that. And for our listeners, for a limited time, you can get 50% off the first year of HoneyBook with promo code almost30. So that's honeybook.com, HONEY book.com. Use the promo code almost30 for 50% off the first year. I know it is really difficult at times being an entrepreneur. It's lonely and it can be extremely overwhelming. So please don't wait. This is the type of platform you want to be using to stay organized and sane and successful. Columbia College, where is that? That's in Chicago?
Mm-hmm. Downtown, not to be confused with the university.
Yeah.
Which is the bougie one.
But I'm just kind of curious, as a woman of color, as a creative, and kind of like growing up, coming up, and growing through systemically white places.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious as to what your experience has been and how, what the conversation with yourself and others have been as you've kind of literally paved the way for women of color.
I mean, I think I come from a lineage of other filmmakers of color who I think are doing really amazing things. So, the reason why I wasn't a huge film buff because I was so theater oriented. So the things that got me interested in the film were web series from Numa Perrier and Issa Rae.
Issa Rae,
yeah.
number one.
And there's just those filmmakers, and then Frances Bodemo, who's in New York, and Shaka King, all Terrence Nance, who they're doing that Random Acts of Flyness show right now, which is amazing.
So good.
Those are the filmmakers that really turned me on and got me excited about stuff. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say that they definitely pushed the door open, and I think that made my time a lot easier. But I think a lot of the times, I operated in a lot of white spaces in Chicago. Was often the only person of color in the room. Was often the only person of color in a friend group, especially in the theater community, because that also felt very segregated in a really shitty way. And in a lot of my conversations, it took me a long time to be able to just be really comfortable within myself. So before, I felt I'd be in these spaces which felt very blue collar and very Midwestern, and is also a part of my my DNA, but they were often always white spaces too. And I would make a joke about my blackness before they could make a joke. And it was a way of making them feel safe around me. And I don't do that anymore, right? That's not, I don't feel I have to walk around eggshells in that way. I'm just this is who I am. And if I decide to be in that space, I decide to be in that space. And you kind of have to take me as my whole being. And that's been really cool as I've gotten older. I think I've been able to do that. But at Columbia, I mean, there was only, of the Black actors that were working at school, there's only 5 of us.
Really?
Yeah. And one of them is Shea Coulee, who was on Drag Race and should have won 2 years ago.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. But we always talk about how we used to walk through the hallways and kind of do a nod to each other of you out here, I see you. I respect you. And there was this small little support group between the 5 of us there, and they're all doing really, really amazing things. I think only one of them is actually only officially acting now, but everyone is playwright, amazing international drag queen, all this stuff. So we just really support each other. I guess I found how important it is to have sisterhood and community around you that also doesn't necessarily have to look like you, but I like the idea of having people that like are around and there's almost an unspoken understanding around our experiences. And then I try not to focus too much on like the shitty part of it, which is, and mostly, you know, I don't have to because I work really hard, especially out here, to surround myself with people that I don't have to continue to explain myself or my experience to them, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. Just really quick, I want to just finish up the one thing that you were talking about, the play that you dropped out of because of the slave twerking with the rifle. So how did you have that conversation? Like, what did you, like, I could just imagine in that situation, like, do you educate them? Like, are you like, what do you do? Like,
it was really bad because I had a lot of those people were my friends at that time. And I had just gotten like a offer to be part of the company, and it was like the first person of color who was on the performance side of the company. I had told them from the beginning, you know, like this feels a little risky in a way that I'm not entirely sure is like edgy. You know, it's not edgy. This is like might be like not great. And so I had already accepted the role, knowing that I had huge reservations about it. And I remember like it was really stressful because I kept trying to talk to the one ensemble member who I was like closest with, and it just wasn't working out. There's like tension in the air.
I feel
during rehearsal. Like I could just tell like everyone kind of knew something was up, but then no one wanted to talk to each other. So it was like a really weird environment. And then I think we were like a week before tech and I sent an email. Like I was like, I had opened up my script to like start learning my lines and I just started crying.
Aww.
And I was like, okay, you can't do this. Yeah. Like whatever is going to happen to you, like it's going to happen. And I just like sent the email because I'm horrible at confrontation.
And then you see him the next day, you're like, hey, what's up?
Yeah. And I was like, I have an understudy. I will sit there. I'll train her like the fight choreography. I'll do whatever. I'm like, but I cannot go on and do like a month and a half run on the show. And I got told I'll never work in the city again. I got told that I was difficult to work with, that I didn't like, I mean, all types of gaslighting that can came at you, which is why I turned to writing at that time, because I thought that was true, that I like, kind of lost my community in that way. Jokes on them, motherfucker.
Like people say you're never going to work in this city again. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard.
Well, it's a direct, you know, it's like it says so much about where they are.
100%. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, who are you to say?
The defensiveness is like,
wow.
Yeah, but you can't even, I don't even know if I was in a world to be able to teach them about that. Other than I know we all went to a bar and like had a conversation where it was like, I was emotional because like you don't leave plays. Like especially, it's such, Chicago has a blue collar approach to its arts too. So like you go there, you do the work. It's about doing the work. And so like for me to walk out of anything, it costs a lot to do that emotionally, you know? And I just remember being like, this is how I felt and and it was just not being received. And it was horrible. But the minute I left the bar and I was like, they pretty much showed me I was going to not be part of the company anymore, there was like a weight off my shoulder. There's a weight. And after that, I was able to focus on what got me here now, which is dope.
What's your relationship with your family? Like, how did they kind of like see your art?
I don't have much of a relationship with my family. So my mom died freshman year of college. She passed away from cancer. And she was definitely the most supportive of that. Like she would come to all my plays like multiple times because I see some like really bad plays. I think she saw in me something that I didn't see in myself at that time, which was like, I remember she told me at one point when I was like right when I moved into the dorms, and she died like a couple days later. But we were on the phone and me and my sister had fought. And she was like, you know, don't go get famous and forget about where you came from. And I remember being like, I'm going to fucking college. I'm going to a theater school. What do you mean famous? Like, what are you talking about? And it was a thing that like has sat with me for a while, like in retrospect. But I think, you know, my sisters and my dad, everyone's just so different. And so like my oldest sister is a doula living in Louisiana. And she is like, it's a world that I don't think I would ever do. But if she's not the happiest, I mean, it is her calling to do that, right? And my other sister works as a social worker in Atlanta, and same, like she's a big traveler, like that is her calling. And often sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to be like, you know, this is what you should be doing. And I'm like, oh no, actually, if there's one thing that unites us is that everyone seems to like be walking in their path, whatever that path is. But I don't talk to my dad much, and I don't talk to my little brother much. And I think that's just, you know, it was when my mom passed away, we were all in very transitional points in our lives. And it kind of just like severed those connections. But what I will say is that like I am really close to my godmother, who is my mom's best friend, and her kids. And what my mom always had was a group of chosen family. And I have a strong chosen family. Like, ride or die. These are people that like I would easily step in front of, a gun for. Like, I trust these people. They've had my back, and vice versa. So in that way, I feel like I have actually like a very intense and like strong familial support system. They just don't happen to be blood related.
Mm. Well, I see it. We see it in Brown Girls, like that, those female relationships. And we're kind of learning too through the podcast, both Krista and I were never really, close to a lot of girls, middle school, high school, college. And it's this really beautiful full circle moment where, you kind of reconnect with, females in the community and see each other for who you are rather than what you're not. So, I just see it in the series. It's so palpable, the relationships.
I mean, I think Fatimah and I kind of have a similar approach to our friendships. And I mean, there's something beautiful about having friendships with women and femme and queer people. Like, I think there's like an understanding there, and just like this openness to be yourself and be accepted in yourself. And I mean, there are definitely men in my life who are like very good friends of mine, but there's also like, there's just something about being able to talk to another woman about.
There's like an emotional fluidity. You know what I mean? Like with female relationships, femme, queer, gender non-conforming. It's like, it's just, and there's a deepness that you can have too. That's like a little bit harder to get there with the men that I've had. I'm trying to think of my man friends.
But I'm trying to think of like times when like I was like a guy's girl, right? Like I'm friends with all the guys. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
Because I kind of wasn't comfortable with some parts of myself that, you know what I mean? Like slipping into a more feminine side of myself wasn't as comfortable.
Well, if you're taught that it's a bad thing, like then the people that are telling you that like, oh, we're accepting you because you're not that, then of course you develop a complex of like, let me like shut that part of myself down. But the reality is that you end up only hurting yourself in that, I think. Yeah, I think the times of me, and I felt that like when I was like the only Black person in a group of like white friends constantly, like I just felt so aware of myself.
Oh yeah.
In not a good way, not like self-aware in a good way, but like super hyper aware of like everything I did, everything I said, and whether or not that was taken the right way. So I try really hard to make sure that the people I surround myself with, is just kind of a mixed bag.
Do you remember like a time when you were like, oh, fuck, this is what it feels like to not feel that way? Like, was there like a time with a group of friends or something where you're like, oh, damn, I actually wasn't thinking about what I was saying or who I was or what I looked like?
I mean, the group of friends I have now, I've had since I was like 19, and we spend every holiday together. Like big Christmases, big this. And every now and then I'll go see family, or I'll go with another, like a partner to their like holiday stuff. And you feel like this. Like super tight. And then I go there and I'm like, man, it's just so beautiful to like not think twice about like, no matter, you're not going to get cornered by someone you don't fuck with. Like at any moment, you're just like, everywhere I go, there's just love. Love. And you can tease each other and it doesn't feel like it's ever like malicious.
Layered
There's just good vibes. And those are the people I ride with all the time.
I love that. I relate to the chosen family thing too. My family isn't close, and we're all kind of just doing our own thing on our own paths. And I've never felt like a deep, I love them very deeply, but I've never felt like an affinity or an attachment to like be where they are or do what they want me to do. And I've always felt like the people that I choose to have in my life are like more important to my growth. And it's kind of like, they meet you where you are at that point in your life. So it's not like they have an idea of who you should be. You know what I mean? Like, or because it's like when I'm hanging out with my mom, it's like she thinks of me as the 12-year-old that was like stealing my clothes from my sister.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of always
to get out of that.
I'm always that person or something like that. So to like be an adult and feel like I've had so many experiences, it's like nice to hang out with people that actually like have seen me on my journey or like recognize me as that.
Yeah. And are growing with you.
Yeah.
Growing with you. Yeah.
Right. Like I think that's really important to have people that can hold you accountable.
Yeah.
That like see you, but see you like as you're becoming who you're probably going to be for the for the majority of your life, you know. And so that to me has always been like a really dope thing with friendships. And I also like, I think Fatimah talks about that all the time, but like we rarely talk about the intensity of friendships, right? Like romantic relationships are for some reason are like on a higher level than friendship relationships. Like that friendship love isn't on the same level as romantic love. And I think it should be. Like if you ever have like broken up with a friend, like especially as women, I think those breakups have been infinitely harder than me than actual like romantic breakups. And there's a reason for like there's a like we chose to love each other that in a way that I think is a lot more pure than like, oh, I was in lust with you at first and then I fell in love with you, right? There's a little bit of like uncontrollableness that goes into like a romantic love. Whereas like with a friendship, you're like, I choose to be with you like at your best, your worst. I've seen you at that, like, you know, and I'm going to fuck with you. And then when those, so I'm always like curious as to why those aren't held in the same esteem.
Have you ever had to break up with a friend?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
What was that like?
Painful and horrible. And it's like you're going through a divorce with your other friends, right? And they have to decide whether or not they're going to like get caught up in taking sides. And it doesn't happen often, but it's the times that it has happened has been like daunting and really like shook me in a way. And you kind of, because it's odd, like you talk about, there's so many listicles about how to get over a breakup, but never about like how to get over a friend breakup. And sometimes it's no one did anything specific, but it's just like you guys have grown apart. Your goals have changed. They don't align with each other anymore. And that's just some real ass adult shit, you know? Yeah. And like learning that and learning like who do I want to be in my life? Because if I'm going to have them in my life, I also then have to give, you know, as well. And so like, who do I want to spend my energy on? Like, that's always something that I'm constantly like checking in on and making sure that it's good for me and for them as well.
Mm. Yeah, we've been talking about that in the group, and we have our secret Facebook group for our girls, and they've been talking about the friendship breakups too. I kind of want to like do a full episode on that because it's like with a relationship, I guess in my experience, I'm like, I'd break up and be heartbroken, but then I'd get another one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like friends, it's like you have so many, and like there is like a part of me that has shared not more than with my partner, but there's a difference in what you share and what you talk about. Or from my experience, I guess for me and my female relationships, and what I share is sometimes a little bit, could be deeper than like what my like personal relationships are about. So, I mean, friendship breakups are like, I still think about all the friends that I've like broken up with or whatever, like probably like at least once a week. And I'm like, you just never know if it's right, you know, like how much do you accept? Like what is being a good friend not giving up? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's hard, right? Because you can have the same conversation around like loved relationships or like romantic love. Is like, is it? I do think that like, you know, I have a level of, there's like tiers of friendships that I have. And there's a tier, like the people I spend holidays with that are like, I love you in spite of all of this. Like, it's going to take something really huge for me. Like when we fought and not talked and did it, like that has happened too. But like, and then we've always come together and been like, that's not worth it. And then there are people who are like, and then we also have like the difficult conversations. And if I could be like, hey, I feel like I'm giving so much and you're not, or vice versa, like we can have those tough conversations and keep it pushing. And that's usually how I feel like, you know, if a person's worth it in your life, if you can actually be like, hey, I'm feeling this type of way. Am I being weird? Or like, can we talk this out? Whereas if you're afraid of telling someone that, or you're walking on eggshells, that's probably a good indicator that like, maybe that's not your ride or die, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that to be able to create space for someone to feel comfortable to bring up things that are uncomfortable. That's all I want, really. I don't want to have to kind of censor myself, you know? Yeah. Like, I don't want to have to worry about hurting someone's feelings. I'm never going to intentionally, but I don't know. We're learning that in business too, which I kind of want to talk about. So like finding your creative partner, Fatimah.
Yeah.
How did you meet? And how did you know like that it was just like kind of a divine intersection?
Yeah. I mean, so Fatimah and I, we met at a live lit show in Chicago. through that meeting, kind of worked with each other on smaller projects. So like if I was hosting a live lit show, I might ask her to read poetry. When she was doing like a photography series, she has like just nude photos of me because she asked me to be
Cool.
for like, that was way before Brown Girls. And then when I was doing my second season for You're So Talented, she had hit me up saying that she had an idea for a web series. And I was like, cool, write it. Like I'm in post. Like I was like, but I'll read it. Like I'll give you whatever notes. And then she invited me to a reading out loud of it. And like a page in, I was just so invested in these characters and those relationships. And I wrote on the margins, like, I have to direct this. And kind of like cornered her afterwards. And I was like, I don't co-direct and I need to do this. Because someone else wanted to direct on it. I was like, no.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I was like, I want to do it. And she was really excited about it. And I think the way I knew that it was right is because it was easy.
Yeah.
It wasn't a fight to get together. It wasn't like a negotiation of how we were going to do it. She was really open and she's such a beautiful writer. And I had never directed anything that wasn't my own words. So it was like, I was like scared about doing that too. Cause I was like, I have somebody's baby and I'm gonna fuck it up. But she was just so giving and, so like down to learn the process. Cause we were still very much, I'm still learning, but definitely back then that was only my third project. And yeah, just how easy it was and how like we gave each other space to do what we were doing. So like, I would give notes on script, but I was like, you do you. Like, this is your writing, so do that. And then she gave me space to direct and create and all that stuff. So I think that just happened kind of without any hiccups. So that was super cool. And I think that like Fatimah and I became like deep friends over that, especially after like the trailer dropped and there was all this press that, because we weren't expecting anything like that to happen. So I think like as we were going through that process, we realized that not only were we not expecting it to happen, but no one in our circle, like in our social groups, had ever experienced anything like that. So we like cling tighter to each other and like, kind of got through that like kind of like bumpy ride where, there was a lot of exciting things that were happening, but it's also very lonely. When like the Emmy nomination, all that stuff happened, like it was just a very, I felt like we were going through growing pains individually and kind of we were supportive of each other through that. But I think the thing that really helps is that, we're creative partners on Brown Girls. And then, she works now with VAM, which is a production company I work for in Chicago. So we like work on certain things together and we're very involved in each other's creative process, but we also respect each other as individual artists. And that's really amazing because we can support each other in our like individual endeavors, as well as like we have a shorthand with each other if we ever want to work on anything together again. As we're developing Brown Girls, which we are continuing doing. But there's other projects and stuff as they come and go. We're like, hey, do you want to do this? Or do you want we just have a shorthand with each other in that way.
I love that. So what was the casting process like? Everyone is so fucking talented.
Yeah, dude, they're fucking talented.
They're good. Yeah. So for the most part, it was super easy because I come from the theater community. So I was just like hiring. And I hate doing auditions so much.
Yeah.
I hate auditions
hire your friends.
much.
If you can hire your friends,
that's so fucking true.
So a lot of the majority of the cast was cast through people that we knew. Nabila Hussain grew up with Fatih in Boston, Cambridge. And she was an engineer. And Fatih was like, I know this person who might be down to do this, but she used to act in high school. And so I was like, well, put her on tape. Like, we'll see what happens. And she was definitely green, but I just kept going back to her tape after seeing all the other auditions. And I was like, oh, she has such like an infectious spirit. Like Nabila has an energy about her that I've never met anyone else like it. She's like a Muppet in a... She's like the most beautiful, like Muppet, funny, like joyful person I have ever met in my life. And that's like super exciting to watch. And so I was like, cool, if we make sure that the supporting cast is like full of people that have been on set before and understand that, then we can be a little bit more lax with the main because I can give like a lot of my attention to them. So there's another actor that was supposed to play Patricia's role, and she dropped out like 10 days before we started shooting. And she was like the first person cast. She had to because of another an issue had came up.
Kicking herself now.
She's dope though. She's doing good. She's doing good. But I had seen Sonia do stand up at a bar in Chicago and like really liked her and thought she was dope. And she was moving to New York the week we were supposed to start shooting Brown Girls. And I hit her up like a couple days before, and I was like, "Is there any way I can like persuade you to push your move date 10 days?" And so her partner at the time moved them there. She stayed, and then she shot. They met. Nabila and Sonia met the first, like that first scene of them on the bed, like that was the first scene that we shot, and that's how they met. They didn't meet each other before then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah. Damn. So when you talked about like the press and stuff, like, yeah, what was that journey like? So you said you didn't think it was going to be, this big or anything like that. Like, where were you when you heard? And then,
I mean, I think it was slowly, like every piece of press we got just felt like crazier and crazier because we were still in post production. So what we did was like, we shot the series and then immediately started cutting a trailer for it. And then knowing that we were going to go and like do the rest of the episodes. So, I had gotten a good amount of press for You're So Talented, and Fati has like a huge following as a poet, and in Jamila was music being on. We kind of all had a little bit of our own like followings within ourselves, but I still don't think like my goal was to premiere at Tribeca. Like that was our big goal, and it was just be something for the community that like our friends would like fuck with and watch, and maybe get some write ups. That was pretty much our the highest hopes that we had for the show. And then like more and more people just started writing about it. And it was like smaller blogs and bigger blogs. And then we started getting like emails from Hollywood. Like it was crazy. Like I remember feeling like, man, I hope they like this show as much as they like the trailer.
Yeah, literally. No pressure.
Yeah, because I was like, we were editing up until the day before. I think we turned in the episodes to Elle like the morning of it was supposed to premiere. It was like that because shit happens in post-production all the time. So I remember just being very like trying to stay focused on just getting the show done. But all of a sudden, we had a PR person who was handling our calendar and all this, which is very weird to do. Like you have one foot into something fancy, and then on the other side, like I was also working at a gym, like sleeping on a couch, like shit like that. Like it was very just an odd way of living. And so even when we went and like pitched it to. So all that stuff was happening before we premiered the web series. Fati and I came out to LA. We both signed with managers. And then 2 weeks after we premiered, we were pitching. And our first pitch was to HBO. And we pitched to like 9 different networks. And it was kind of like, I just remember me and Fati were just talking about this, how like that night when we found out that like HBO and a couple other places had put in bids and offers, our managers came over and we like had this party at like our friend's house. And it felt like so pure then, like, wow, we're just like some girls from Chicago, like doing dope shit, and had no idea what the process would be. Still had no idea that we would get the Emmy nomination. Like that was kind of crazy for us because that like it takes a lot. So anyone can submit for the Emmys, right? But there's the TV Academy they have to know what you are doing for you to get a nomination. Like you have to have enough people. And to think about like all the web series in the world. And most of the times the Emmy nominations for digital short form series are like spinoffs from bigger shows. So for us to like be this like little $20,000 budget web series who got there, it was crazy. We knew it was coming. We knew the nominations were coming the next day. So I kind of like woke up and like checked my phone to see if it was up. And it did. And it was like...
That is so surreal.
It was insane. Yeah. It was crazy.
It's weird because you just like look at your phone and you're like, oh.
You're like, I gotta go to the gym and
literally.
But I got an F
Yeah, I was like, well, how are you gonna? I think like our gas was off at that point or something. I don't know. It was like very odd.
Life. Life is so funny. Like that is the craziest thing.
Yeah.
Were you ever like frustrated by that? Were you ever frustrated by like
the not matching?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still not mad.
Damn.
Right? Like so.
Same.
Yeah.
I think about it all the time.
I think about it all the time, and that's why like I think there's a part of me that like laughs about it because I can tell that like, I'm on the cusp of that, but like it takes money to get money, right? So like me joining the union is like $12,000. Me like, and I'm like I made like $15,000 before I moved out here, like a year, like 15 to 17,000. I wasn't making bank, you know what I'm saying? So like all of a sudden you come out here and everything feels like monopoly money. It's like, oh, people will be like, oh, 80K is not a lot of money. I'm like, okay,
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'll take what I can get. Can you pay me in installments? Like, I'll take it. So yeah, we still go through that stuff. And because it's going to take, there's a lot of things in development or a lot of things going on, but like, Hollywood takes forever to pay people. You have to pay dues, literally pay dues and stuff once you start joining the unions, and taxes and reps. Like 60% of my check pretty much goes to taxes, my lawyers, my agents, my managers, and my PR person. Like that's legit. So you're saying you're taking home 40% of whatever the offer is, and the offer's not that great because you're new. So like that's just a real of like.
Yeah. What is that conversation like with HBO? You know what I mean? Like the content is just so important to be put out into the world. Like, how do you kind of like not leverage it, but know your worth in that room? Like HBO, like, huge.
Yeah.
Right. I would be insanely intimidated. Like, what is the self-talk? Like, what is the strategy?
There is no self-talk. I don't talk to them in terms of...
so it's all your
through
manager,
my lawyers.
Your lawyer.
Yeah. And we got a good deal with HBO, but like,
were you in the room when you pitched?
We pitched. So
what
we pitched a series.
Like?
Do you have like a PowerPoint?
Yeah, right. No, so I did make a visual deck of it, which felt weird because we had just like let the series come out. So we were like, well, what else do you need to see?
Yeah.
But once again, like when you don't know any better, like now I've been on so many pitches that I feel like my decks are so much tighter and all this other stuff, and our pitches are tighter. But we didn't know any better. Like we just went in there and we talked about the series, and Fatih and I are rather charming together.
Help.
Because we were just like, we don't know. And I think that they were like, knew about the content before. Like they wanted us to come in. So that was really helpful. And no one knows the story like we do. So like in that world, we definitely had the upper hand. Like there was nothing. I mean, we were scared as fuck because it was the first pitch we had ever done in our lives. But we also, I remember Fatih and I and our managers being like, HBO's gonna be like a practice pitch. There's no way they're gonna pick it up. It's just a practice pitch. And then for it to come full circle, and we ended up like going with them is kind of crazy. But yeah.
Where are you at now in that process?
We are getting notes back on pilot scripts, and we're hopefully like hear back soon. I mean, they've been really great. So like hopefully, HBO is like known to take its time in development. But I think that's just going to make the show better.
Yes.
In the long run. So, fingers crossed everything continues going well.
Awesome.
Yeah. Wow. We got you early.
Proud of you.
I was just thinking about that. I'm like, wow, we got you early, girl. We're not going to be able to get this interview in like a year.
So coming off of the holidays, I am feeling a bit like I need a detox. So for the past few days, I have been drinking Dirty Lemon functional beverage in charcoal every single day. It's a gentle daily detox, which has honestly improved my digestion, stimulates my liver function. I know that because my pee is yellow and getting all the toxins out. And I just feel cleansed. And honestly, it helps my skin as well. Because sometimes after I drink and eat like shit, my skin is gray. So I really notice a difference. Dirty Lemon is our go-to for functional beverages. They have everything from your go-to beauty beverage, which has collagen in it. It hydrates your skin, increases skin elasticity, reduces wrinkles, you name it. They also have one for all-day energy, the ginseng. That one really helps me focus. I usually drink it on a work day. And they have their new functional beverage, the turmeric, which really helps with my inflammations. And of course, they have their sleep beverage, which helps me to sleep like a goddamn baby. So if you'd like to try Dirty Lemon, you can go to dirtylemon.com, use our code almost30, and you will get an extra free case in your first order. So dirtylemon.com, DIRTY lemon.com, use our code almost30 for an extra free case in your first order.
So yesterday I walked over to Justin and I was curious what he was doing on his phone, and he was checking his Robinhood balance.
Oh,
that boy has he said his portfolio has grown by 33% this year.
Wow.
He's done a really, really good job, and he's been using Robinhood this whole time.
That's
he was
incredible.
Actually the one that introduced me to Robinhood, and I've been a user and lover of it ever since.
I love it because, this year I told myself I want to learn things by actually doing them instead of thinking about doing them.
Yes.
And this Robinhood makes it so easy to do that. I'm not overwhelmed. The design is super easy to use. Sometimes I get overwhelmed if there's too much stuff going on.
Yep. It's so intuitive and simple. So although this seems very overwhelming when you're dealing with the market or anything like that, stocks, all of that stuff, Robinhood makes it so simple, intuitive, and non-intimidating.
Yeah, and they don't charge any commission fees. So trade stocks and keep all of your profits, which is nice.
Which is like $1 zillion.
Zillions and zillions. So we are giving our listeners, Robinhood is giving our listeners a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint to help you build your portfolio. So sign up at almost30.robinhood.com. So that's almost30, almost30.robinhood.com. And you'll get a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint.
I love Brown Girls. I love the fucking title.
Oh, man.
It's just so like, it's just, I don't know. It's just fucking perfect. Like, did you know the whole time? You're like, it's going to be called Brown Girls.
Yeah, Fatih came with it called Brown Girls. Yeah. And I was like, at first a little afraid that we were gonna get too many comparisons to girls about it. But Fatih had never watched the show.
I didn't think about that. That's funny.
She's very much, Fatih is like a very specific, like the things that she watches. I feel like she's just like, oh yeah, I've never seen Girls. I've never seen Broad City. And she's like legit. She's not being like she's a Janie. Yeah.
Sometimes it's like I don't know. Yeah, I can't watch stuff that's like.
Because I like love it, and then if I'm trying to be creative, I'm like,
yeah, it's difficult to watch.
Getting in my way.
It's difficult to watch. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think she was just like the people that hold me down and who have like made me the who I am today are Brown Girls. So yeah, and all the ways they like fall into that category. And you know, the series being about like the queer Black and brown community in Chicago is something that we both know intimately well. So I think it just worked out.
I love that. And I love that they're very multi-dimensional humans, you know, and like it's just real. And it's weird to say that that's refreshing, but it is.
Yeah.
You know, like there's usually kind of like a character description tagged to, you know, an actor of color where they are the blank, you know, and it's like, in this, they're humans. Yeah. And it's just, it really is beautiful.
Yeah. And I think that's like, you know, we always talk about wanting to talk about like the characters and the people in our lives who like operate in like the gray area, right? And they are not heroes, they're not saints, they're not sinners, they're just regular ass fucking people, and they're trying to like not even figure it out. They're just trying to exist, you know, and all the things that happen when you try to exist in the world. And so like Fatih's like really great at connecting to the humanity in those characters, and they're messy sometimes, and they're like, you know, they're gross in other ways. But there's like an undercurrent of love in all those relationships that I think for me spoke to me when I read the initial script, and that's why I think a lot of people are kind of connected to it. Yeah,
in like Hollywood or like in, I guess, and I don't really even know, you guys know more so, but did you guys feel like being Black and being Indian or being Pacific Island or whatever is underrepresented, and you wanted to like really like show like a different side of it rather than just the stereotypes that you've seen?
I think we just wanted to highlight people that seemed familiar to us, right? So I don't know if there was specifically a like, let's change, you know, representation here. It was just like, let's tell these stories, and in our lives, the characters that live these lives look like these people, right? So if they're Pakistani or Bangladeshi or mixed or all those type of things, like that's how vibrant my community is. And I don't want to be stuck in a place where I'm trying to like hide away from that. Like there's no reason to. So I don't know if it was like, we're gonna do this thing and like make it like it be kind of like a political act, but like the personal is political, right? So I think that's what we kind of ended up doing. And we're proud of that. Yeah.
It's so good.
What about the table read? Like, and kind of as a director working with the actors, what is the balance between like, I don't want to say pressure, but like there is weight to, what you are doing in creating this series. And so like, what is the conversation like to kind of almost express, the importance of this, but also just kind of like keep it light in that way?
I mean, in general, I think my sets are a little hippy dippy, so it's normally very light.
Yeah.
But I think that I'm never going to put the weight of like society on an actor's shoulders as they're going into a scene, right? So we really do talk about the moments of it and what those moments mean to each other. So like when Layla's character comes out to her sister, like I'm not a queer woman, but my DP was queer and the production designer was queer and Fatih was queer. And so like there was a world where, when they got the first take done and I looked to the left and I looked to my right and, it sat with them and it sat with me, then we're like, okay, we're on the right page. Let's just keep unpacking that. Because that's the way, I try to give like maybe one big macro note and then just work in the details of it as we go on and just and try to make a safe space so that the actors feel like they can be vulnerable and that they can try things. And that like your job is just as important as mine. Like one can't happen without the other. And I think that's like what I try to do with everything on my set. Everyone on my set, Yeah, so sets important. I feel like they feel like militarized because of men.
Yeah.
And I really want to like take that idea of like like this very tight, like I don't know, tense set. I want to throw away that idea. I don't really fuck with that. It doesn't vibe with me, and I don't think you get better work done in that way.
No, either. I think the work is totally limited.
Yeah,
with a set like that, because then you're just worried about everything that you're doing.
You're never going to work in this town. How do you like give feedback? Like, how do you give and receive feedback? I would find that challenging. I guess I would find that challenging as a director. Like, your job is, I guess, part of your job is really to like give feedback in your creative direction of like what you want the scene to be like. How do you? I'm personally having a hard time within our business giving and receiving feedback all the time. It's like what you do. You know what I mean? Like, how do you do that? I
think the best, when I've been the most successful at it is when I've taken the time to prep like I should, so that like I'm meeting with every head of the department and we're getting on the same wavelength, right? And I still give them space to surprise me or to come up with ideas that we hadn't initially thought about. And I try to make sure that's an open door policy, throughout. So by the time that we're giving feedback and it's like yes or no, it doesn't come from like, it's not like coming from a malicious place or like a power place. It's like, we're all trying to tell this. Are we all trying to tell the same story? Because we should be. So like, does this align with that or does it not? And I think because if you take that time, you really like respect the people that you hired. And know them to be experts in their field or allowing them to be the experts in their field, then it's a much easier, like, road to travel by being like, maybe this isn't exactly what I want, but there's a detail of that I think you were on the right page for. So maybe like, let's figure out how to unpack that. Like that's a lot. Sometimes I don't know. Like I'm working with a composer for the first time for the short film that I'm doing. And I was like, I've never worked with a composer before. I actually don't know how to ask you to. I don't 100% know exactly what you do. Like I know you make the score, but I don't know how to give you feedback on that. And just being honest about that has been super helpful. Because then she's like, dope. Okay, so this is how I normally work. Does that work for you? And I'm like, cool. That totally works for me. Or that doesn't work for me. Let's like negotiate that. I think honesty 100% has been the best policy for me in that way.
I like lying. I like being a little feisty. Just keeping it compressed.
Yeah, it's not good for you though.
Dude, I know. I'm just fucking.
No, I know, but I feel like I have, like I said, like I'm not really great with confrontation, and I'm trying to be better because there's a line, right? There's a line where I want to be super collaborative and I want to I come up with things together, but there's also a line where it's like I am the captain steering the ship. Right. So at the end of the day, the buck ends with me. Yeah. And so I have to be able to like also, keep everything on the same page and on the same train and it's going like that. So there are times where I have to put a little bass in my voice and like, but
I got to put on my red.
Yeah. But I don't live there. Yeah. It's just more of like when it has to happen and she can come out. But for the most part, I like to like live in this space.
And I think creatives, it's funny, like creatives like to kind of flow between being led and having like their own creative drive and leadership. And that's I think both are really fun for me to experience. Like if you have a vision and I'm working with and for you, I'm like, lead me, like take me to where your mind and heart is. So yeah, I can kind of feel that where there are moments when you really need to kind of like plant your feet and be like, this is
what it is.
Yeah. And it feels good for the people that are, you know, following you.
Yeah. I think it's like super good for them to be able to know that you know what you want.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And I think like prep is sometimes a time to figure out what it is if you don't know. But once we're on set, you know, like I should have a really good handling on like what works and what doesn't work. And I think that makes them have more confidence in you. Confidence, I'm sorry, in you. Yeah.
You said that you grew up Baptist. Are you still, you know, super religious? Are you spiritual? Like, what does your spiritual world look like?
Definitely not religious at all anymore. But I do think, I think like spiritualism is something that, or spirituality is something that I found as something that's very personal, right? Like, and I think everyone's spiritual journey is very personal to them. And for me, it's just like, I don't believe that, you know, myself is the biggest thing in the universe. You know, I feel very actually small in the universe, but I feel very connected to everyone in the universe as well. So I think for me, a lot of times it's just about figuring out, like, am I doing like good in the world, right? Am I being a good person? Like really common, like things that actually I feel like, you know, stretches across religions as well. It's trying to like get to the place of spirit. Someone told me like how like religion feels like spirituality through like institutions. Like they just like put an institution on top of that, and then that's what fucked it up. And that might be too broad of a statement, but I do feel like spirituality is like that without the box. You know, you kind of get to figure it out for yourself and ebb and flow, and things change as you change. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I don't pray all the time, but I do like, you know, light some incense and light some sage, and I'll really try to like connect with my thoughts, especially out here, because I feel like in LA, everything is super myopic, right? So I go to generals probably, you know, a good amount of time a week. And I'm there to talk about myself. So all I do is like talk about myself a lot. I talk about myself, or I give directions to get something done. Like that's kind of that's not great. Like it feels very superficial, but also like really personal in a weird way. So I like to try to like connect to
which generals?
When you go to studios and like meet people, and they're like, "Oh, we want to work with you," but like, it's all nebulous. It's like,
Totally.
Yeah. So I go to a lot of those, and it's just it's an odd situation to just be in a place where it doesn't organically come up. It just comes up because you have a spiel about yourself, and you have to continue saying that, and then you say that so much that you feel like an empty thing.
I hear that.
You know, so like for me, it's like how do I replenish myself, because I feel like I give a lot out. Whether or not if it's on set or if it's in a meeting or events that we go to, all those feel very draining. So I have to figure out a way how to like, or I'm constantly figuring out ways to like replenish myself and refill the well. And all of that seems like it's part of a spiritual journey to me. You know?
Yeah, it's like religion's like what other people say it should be, and then spirituality is like what you say it should be. Because it's like religion is this like thing that's been contrived, and there's these institutions and there's these processes put in place and there's these rules. But with spirituality, it's like whatever you want to make it, you know, whatever feels good to you. What are the rules that you want to put, or what is it that you want to follow? Yeah. Rather than just like taking it down from what else everyone's telling you what to do.
Yeah. And I have a strong reaction about being told what to do.
Yeah. I feel that. What is this short film?
So I did this. So before, God, what happened before? This is before I directed like my first not the first TV show, like an episode of TV. I applied for this fellowship with Film Independent called Project Involve. And what they do is they take like 5 directors, 5 DPs, 5 editors, 5 like producing fellows, and throughout 9 months, they get paired with a mentor who's working in Hollywood, and then they also have to come together and make a short film. So myself and this amazing writer named Hank Jones came together, and we came up with a story called Masculine. And it's a it's a satirical exploration of gender roles in a world where like the matriarchy operates very much like the patriarchy. today. But it's still very much like not quite mumblecore, but it's like stylized and also like a slice of life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of the thing that we're straddling, the line we're straddling. So that premieres at the LA Film Fest on September 20th.
Can you tell me more about that? Like the matriarchy acts like the patriarchy. Can you explain that more?
Yeah. So we were like, Hank is a Black man, I'm a Black woman. We were talking a lot about how like there's just rampant misogyny in our communities. In a way that's like never unchecked. It's just so obvious that like you go to a party and guys could be like feeding girls drinks and like being super aggressive sexually and catcalling, all that stuff. And he was talking about how he feels uncomfortable around it and how like that type of stuff is usually like a mask that guys don't like. A lot of times, most of those guys don't want to do it, but that's what they've been taught as what is going to get them power in the universe. Like that's the transactional like currency is power and like sexual deeds. And so we at first started the script and it was going to be like two guys going through the world. And then I was like, it's not sitting well with me about something. And I was like, what if we flipped it and made them women? And just like, so they still operate. They still like, they look like women. They're, dressed in whatever, feminine, things, whatever that means. But they talk very in a way that feels, I think, familiar to an audience's ear as in terms of like misogynistic terms, but just towards men. So they're doing that but towards men. And it's not just I don't think it's just like a calling out of how the way men treat other women. I think it's also how like men treat other men, and how like that actually is not a helpful practice for like them. Like it's actually like hurting you guys because you can never be vulnerable with each other. That stuff isn't considered currency in that world. Like we don't need that. And I think that like, you say toxic masculinity doesn't just hurt women, it hurts the men as well. And that's kind of what we want to do it. But like, I'm a dark comedic person, so we did it in that way.
Cool.
And Sonia is in that too. She plays the lead.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's
and Nabila is in it too. She has like a little cameo.
That's
amazing.
Yeah.
I love
September
that.
20th, LA Film Fest. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. This has been amazing.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, so good. So
Kim, you're like, I can't believe we got you before. It's gonna match, honey.
Oh, good.
Your
Good.
shit's gonna match.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I had a friend tell me recently, we were like with the new moon coming out, she was like, you will never be at a deficit again. We have to continue to remind ourselves that. Like, I think a lot of us, especially if you come from like not a lot of money or anything like that, there's like this fear that I'm going to lose stuff. I'm going to be backward on that. And she was like, we will never be at a deficit again. So like that fear that you have that someone's going to come and take it away. She's like, that's just a fear. You need to stop giving energy to it.
It's a great reminder.
And I was thinking about that yesterday because I was like in the best mood. I was just like in a fucking good ass mood. I was like, I'm in such a fucking good ass mood. I'm like, what if something happened tomorrow to take that away?
Yeah.
And I was like, I cannot think like that. I need to like, I need to believe that like it only gets better.
Yeah.
Like yes, there will be hard times. So like really it only gets better. And like, I can continue from here to build and make it better and better.
Yeah.
Rather than like.
And also that like when things are working out, that is how it should be. And 100%. It's not just luck. Like
it's not a fluke.
Synchronicities are what's supposed to be happening all the time. And if they're not, then something is out of alignment and it's okay. It just needs like a kind of a deeper look. But I think about that a lot because I think I grew up like programmed to think that when things work out, it's once every, few years or whatever it is, where it's like you work for it, and then it works out. And then you got to work for the next thing. Like, it should be like in flow and and then like the anxiety just lifts because it just is how it should be. But anyway, I feel you on that.
No deficit.
No deficit.
No deficit.
So how can people connect with you and follow your work? I mean, so many things are coming out soon, so I want them to be up on it.
I guess follow my Instagram. I feel like I share a lot of that stuff. I just directed a series called East of La Brea for Paul Feig's company. So that like follows like three like friends who are like mid-20s, late 20s, who are kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of an exploration of LA, but not in like the sunny, shiny way that we're like used to seeing it. So we're seeing the beauty in like neighborhoods we don't often get to explore. So that I'm really excited about. We're in post-production for that, so it'll be a little bit. I'm directing on Grownish in a couple weeks.
No way.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that. Don't know what episodes it is
Dude,
yet.
that's amazing.
Cool.
So that's going on. But I mean, I would say share on my Instagram because that's probably where, So that's like samb.chi.
Great.
Yeah.
Emmy Chicago for life.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
You're the best.
Yeah, it's such a good time. Thank you guys for listening. We love you. Make sure you connect with Sam. Stay tuned for Brown Girls on HBO.
And everything's linked in the show notes if you guys want to watch
Mm-hmm.
and everything like that. And we will talk to you later and see you in the Facebook group.
Love you.
Love you. Bye.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Lovely.
Yeah, I loved hanging with her. Okay, review of the week. Let's see. Hurry and Listen, 5 stars. This is my favorite podcast ever. I love how Lindsay and Krista talk about spiritual things in an easy way to follow and so many topics that I've never known about. I'm always learning and laughing when I listen to Almost 30 and have been listening to them since the beginning. Listen to this podcast to laugh, learn, and change your perspective on things. Thank you so much. This is Happy Woo. I love when people give little nicknames.
Cute. Happy Woo. Thank you.
Thank you. So
Thanks,
sweet.
guys. Reviews on iTunes mean a lot, so appreciate it. We will see you on tour next summer. This year, we will keep you posted for our dates, so stay tuned. We've got a lot of exciting things coming your way. And thank you again, Sam. Sam can be found on Instagram at samb.chi, so Sam B Shy. And then she has her website, sambailey.com. So that is where you can find her and all of that. samqbailey.com. That is where you can find all of her information, and then on Instagram as well.
Thanks so much for listening. We love you. Have a great week.
Bye.